Death is an inescapable aspect of the human experience, yet it is often the source of our greatest fears and anxieties. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, faced this reality with profound wisdom and clarity in his letters to Lucilius. His reflections on mortality do not dwell on despair, but instead offer guidance on how to live fully and courageously, unburdened by the fear of life's inevitable end. In this essay, we explore Seneca's teachings on facing death and embracing mortality as a central part of living a meaningful life. 1. Death is a natural part of life. Letter 26. One of Seneca's core teachings is that death is not an unnatural event, but the final act of life, a return to the same state we were in before birth. He writes in Letter 26, "What is death? Either a transition or an end. I'm not afraid of either." This perspective invites us to see death not as a calamity, but as a natural process. Seneca reminds us that life is a cycle, and death is merely its completion. We are part of nature, and just as all living things must come to an end, so too must we. By aligning our mindset with this truth, we can let go of unnecessary fear. This acceptance doesn't diminish the value of life, but enhances it by allowing us to live without the shadow of dread looming over us. 2. Fear of death is fear of the unknown. Letter 53. Much of our fear of death stems from its mystery. In Letter 53, Seneca compares death to navigating a stormy sea. The uncertainty of what lies beyond, or whether anything lies beyond, is what frightens us most. Yet he argues that fear of the unknown is irrational. He asks, "Why do you fear what you cannot know?" For the Stoic, it is better to focus on living well than to waste energy fearing something that is beyond understanding. Seneca also challenges us to recognize that our fear often arises from cultural conditioning and irrational imagination. By confronting this fear directly, through reflection and reason, we can reduce its grip on our minds. 3. Life's brevity should inspire urgency. Letter 101. Seneca repeatedly emphasizes that life is short, but it is long enough if used wisely. In Letter 101, he writes, "Life, if you know how to use it, is long." This is not a call to hedonism, but a reminder to live with purpose and intention. Death's inevitability should not paralyze us, but motivate us to make the most of our time. Instead of procrastinating or chasing trivial pursuits, Seneca urges us to focus on what truly matters: self-improvement, meaningful relationships, and contributing to the greater good. By embracing the fleeting nature of life, we learn to prioritize and avoid wasting our precious moments. 4. Death as freedom from suffering. Letter 77. In Letter 77, Seneca addresses a difficult truth. For those who suffer greatly, death can be a release. He writes, "Life is not always worth living, but it is always worth examining." This statement is not a glorification of death, but an acknowledgement of its role in freeing us from unbearable pain. For Seneca, the key is to approach this perspective rationally and without despair. If life becomes intolerable, death can be seen as a choice rather than a punishment. However, this understanding requires immense courage and a clear mind. It also underscores the importance of living well while we can. 5. Prepare for death by practicing it daily. Letter 12. Seneca believes that we should prepare for death not by avoiding the thought of it, but by facing it regularly. In Letter 12, he suggests that we reflect on our mortality daily, not as a morbid exercise, but as a way to cultivate gratitude and resilience. He writes, "Let us prepare our minds as if we've come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." This practice ensures that we live each day as if it were our last, fostering a sense of presence and urgency. Practical steps to implement this might include journaling about what we are grateful for, considering what unfinished business we'd regret leaving behind, and striving to act in alignment with our values every day. 6. Death is the great equalizer. Letter 54. In Letter 54, Seneca reflects on the universal nature of death. He writes, "Death spares no one. Kings and paupers, the strong and the weak, all meet the same fate." This universality can be a source of comfort. No matter our status or achievements, death comes for us all, and in that, we are united. Rather than viewing this as a cause for despair, Seneca sees it as a reason to let go of envy, pride, and excessive ambition. By remembering that we all share the same end, we can cultivate humility and compassion. 7. Living without fear of death is true freedom. Letter 61. For Seneca, the ultimate goal is to live without the fear of death. In Letter 61, he writes, "He who has learned to die has unlearned slavery." The fear of death enslaves us, making us overly cautious, hesitant, and dependent on external security. Freedom comes when we no longer allow the inevitability of death to control our choices. This doesn't mean recklessness, but living with courage and clarity, unafraid to take risks or pursue meaningful goals. When we stop fearing death, we start truly living. 8. Embrace mortality to live fully. Letter 71. Finally, Seneca encourages us to view mortality as a gift rather than a curse. In Letter 71, he writes, "The wise man lives as long as he should, not as long as he can." This wisdom helps us focus on the quality of life rather than its length. By embracing the fact that life is finite, we are reminded to savor each moment and live authentically. Mortality teaches us that every day is an opportunity to grow, connect, and contribute to the world around us. Conclusion. Seneca's reflections on death and mortality challenge us to confront our deepest fears with reason and courage. Death, he argues, is not an enemy but a teacher, one that reminds us to live intentionally, value our time, and let go of what does not serve us. By facing mortality head-on, we can free ourselves from fear and embrace the fullness of life. Let us, as Seneca advises, prepare for death by living well. For in learning to face death, we learn to live.